Hey everyone, welcome to part 15 of the Pokemon game series in Unity. So in this video and the next one, we will implement a party screen and let the players switch Pokemons in battle. So first let me show you how it's going to look like. So you can see that we have more actions to choose from now. And if I select Pokemon, it'll take me to the party screen, which will show all the Pokemons in my party. And if I select a different Pokemon, I'll call back my current one and send out the Pokemon that I selected. Okay, so this is what we are going to implement. A special thanks to all my Patreons for supporting me in this journey. So by becoming a Patreon, you can support me in the making of the series and you'll get some cool rewards. So until now, I wasn't able to share the complete project files of this tutorial series because it contains contents with copyright. But I've created a different project in which I replaced all the copyrighted content with free ones, and I posted the complete project files of it in Patreon. So I'll put a link down in the description in case you want to check that out. Alright, with that, let's start the video. Okay, so first we need to add more actions to our action selector. So if I enable my battle system and focus on the action selector, let me also enable that. So you can see that we only have two actions, fight and run right now. So we need to add two more. So under the action selector, I'll duplicate the fight text two times and I'll name the first to bag text and change the text to bag, and the second I'll change to Pokemon text. Alright, so let me just drag the run text to the bottom. And now since we have four actions, we need to make this a grid layout just like we did for the move selector. So first let me make the action selector a little big. I'll also adjust the size of my dialog text. Alright, and now we'll add a grid layout group to our action selector. Alright, that'll arrange it as a grid, but we need to play with the cell size to make it look good. So I'll change the X of the cell size to 120 and the Y to something like 50. And I'll just give some spacing between the elements. Alright, and finally I'll just select all the text and change the horizontal alignment to left. Okay, so that looks much better. Let me just reposition this a little. Alright, that looks good. So now to the battle dialog box script, we need to add the newly created actions. So I'll change the size to 4. I'll drag the bag text to the element at index 1 and the Pokemon text for the next one. Alright, we are done with the UI for the action selector now. So next let's change the code so that the user will be able to select all four actions. So let me just disable the action selector and battle system just like how it was before, and we'll open up our battle system script. So in the battle system script, handle action selection is responsible for selecting the actions. But now since we have four actions, we should be able to select each one of them by using all the arrow keys, just like we select the moves right now. Okay, so I'll just remove this code, and if the right arrow is pressed, then we'll just increment the current action and we'll decrement it if the left arrow is pressed. And if the down arrow is pressed, we will increment the current action by 2. And finally, if the up arrow is pressed, we will decrement it by 2. So just like we did for the move selection. So the only difference is for the move selection, we also had a second if statement inside it to make sure that the current move variable doesn't go beyond the size of the list. But here we'll just do that in a different way, which is more simple. So here I'll use a clamp function, which is available inside the mathf class. And I'll just clamp the value of current action between 0 and 3. So since there are 4 moves in the list, the index will be between 0 and 3. So this makes the code much more simpler compared to how we did for the move selection. I don't know why I didn't think about the clamp function while I was implementing the move selection. So let's also use this approach in the move selection so that the code will be much more short and readable. So I'll just remove all this and paste the action selection logic here. And we just have to change the current action to current move. So I'll just use Control Alt and click to add multiple cursors so that I can just edit all of this at the same time. Okay, so that's a pretty cool feature in Visual Studio. And finally, we just have to clamp the current move. So I'll use mathf.clamp and clamp it between 0 and the number of moves of the player Pokemon minus 1. Okay, so the code is much more readable right now. So now, since we have 4 actions, we also have to change this code. So let me just make copies of the else if statement and change the values of the current action. So if current action equal to 1, the action is bag. And if it's equal to 2, the action is Pokemon. So this is the action we'll use to open the party screen and switch the Pokemon. So I'll just call a function called open party screen here. I'll just create that function below our player action function. And for now, I'll just print party screen since we haven't created that yet. Okay, so we are done with the handle action selection function. But one more thing I want to add is once the player goes to the move selection state, he should be able to come back to the action selection state by pressing X. So in the handle move selection, I'll just write another condition to check if the X key is pressed. And in this case, we need to disable the move selector, enable the dialog box, and go back to the player action state instead. Alright, so now let's go back to Unity and test if all these are working correctly. Okay, so if I start a battle, you can see that we can navigate through all the actions. And if I select the fight action, it'll go to the move selection state. But now if we press the X button, it'll take us back to the action selection state. Alright, just like this. But I don't want this choose action to be animated since it's going to keep animating every time I come back to the action state. So for that, let's just go to the player action function. And instead of using the type dialog coroutine, we can just use the set dialog function. So I'll just change this to set dialog. So now it will not be animated. So in case you prefer this to be animated, then just make sure to change the player action to a coroutine and make sure that the state is set to the player action only after the animation of the dialog is complete, or this will cause some weird issues in the future. But in my case, I don't want to animate this anymore since we'll be returning back to the action state a lot and we don't want to waste the time taken to animate this text. Okay, so now let's create the UI for our party screen. So let me just enable my battle system once again. And under the battle canvas, I'll add a new image called party screen. So I want this to cover the entire screen. So I'll hold Alt and select stretch on both sides to set the position and the pivot at the same time. Okay, I should rename this to party screen. And under the party screen, I'll create an empty object called party list, which will show the list of Pokemons. So let me just make that a little big. And now inside the party list, we need a UI kind of like the player HUD and enemy HUD to show the details of the Pokemon. So I'll just copy the player HUD into my party list. Let me just make that a child object of the party list. So yeah, we need a UI like this to show the details of our party member. So I'll rename this to party member. And we don't need a background image for this, so I'll just remove it. And I'll just make the party member a prefab since we'll have to make 6 duplicates of it. So I'll go to my game folder, and here I'll create a new folder called UI. And let me just drag and drop my party member here in order to create a prefab. So I like to keep all my scriptable objects and prefab inside the game folder so that it's easy for the game designer to find these and tune their values to balance the gameplay. So next we need to create 5 more duplicates of the party member. So total we can have 6 party members in our party. And I'll just add a grid layout group to our party list game object. And I'll change the cell size to something like 300 by 150. Okay, that looks good. Let me just reposition it. And finally, under the party screen, I'll also create a text called message text. So let me just hold Alt and change its position and angle to the bottom of the screen. And now we can also make it a little big. I'll just change the text to something like test message for now. I'll change the font to Orange Kit and change the font size to 40, just like all our text. And finally, I'll change the alignment to center. So right now, on our party member game object, the Battle HUD script is attached. But we don't want that. We want to add a new script to it. So let's go inside our script folder and inside the battle, I'll create a new C# script called party member UI, which we'll attach to the party member game object. And next I'll create a script called party screen, which we'll attach to our party screen. So let me open the party member UI script, and it's going to be similar to the Battle.NET script, but we'll have few differences. So let me copy paste all the variables and the set data function, since we'll need that in the party member UI script also. So we'll have to import UnityEngine.UI namespace. Okay, so that's all we need for now. And next I'll go to my party screen script. So in my party screen script, I need a list of party member UI. I'll just name it member slots. We can just make it a serialized field and assign the slots one by one, but I'll show you a better way of doing that. So next we need a reference to our message text. So I'll say text, and we need to import unityengine.ui, and I'll name the variable as message text. On this one, we'll just make it a serialized field and assign from the inspector. And for the member slots, we will assign them inside a public function called init, which stands for initialize. And to get all the party member UI, we can just say get components in children. Make sure to use get components, not component, since we want to return multiple components. And party member UI is the component that we want. So this function will return all the party member UI components that are attached to the child objects of the party screen. So we don't have to manually assign each one of them from the inspector, and we don't have to worry in case we want to change the number of members that we allow in our party. But you can see that I'm getting an error here. So this is because this function returns an array of party member UI, but we have created a list here. So let me just change that to an array. So now we have our member slots assigned. So next we need a public function called set party data, and it will take a list of Pokemons. So inside this function, I'll loop through all the member slots. So since this is an array, I have to use the length property in order to loop through it. So this is actually the list of Pokemons in our player's party. So we can have any number of Pokemons in our party, any number that is less than 6. So we might have 2 Pokemons in our party or 3 Pokemons, but we'll always have 6 member slots, right? So we only have to set the data of the Pokemon into the member slot if I is less than Pokemons.count. So in this case, we can set the data of the Pokemon to the member slot by calling the set data function and passing the Pokemon at that index. And otherwise, we'll just disable that member slot. So now if we have only 3 Pokemons in our party, we will only show 3 member slots in the UI. The rest of them will be disabled. Okay, so now in our battle system, first let's grab a reference to our party screen. And in the setup battle, we'll just call party screen.init to initialize it. And in the open party screen function, instead of printing party screen, we'll call party screen dot set party data and pass all the Pokemons in our player party. Okay, so right now we don't have a way to reference the list of Pokemons in the party. So let's go to the Pokemon party class, and I'll just create a property to expose this list. And in the getter, we'll just have to return our Pokemon's list. So now we can pass player party.pokemons to the set party data function, and we'll just enable our party screen game object. Alright, so let's head back to Unity, and for the party member object, we need to assign the party member UI script instead of the Battle.net script. But Always remember when you are editing a prefab, make sure to go inside the prefab and edit it so that the change will be reflected for all the other instances of that prefab in the scene. So we'll go inside the party member and remove the Battlehead script and add the party member UI script, and I'll assign the name text, the level text, and finally the HP bar also. Okay, so now if we go back, you can see that all the instances of party member has the party member UI script attached. So yeah, that's really important whenever you are editing a prefab. You have to go inside it and edit, and do not edit it directly from here. Okay, so let's add the party screen script to our party screen game object, and I'll just assign my message text. And finally, to the battle system, we need to assign the party screen game object. Alright, so let me also do one more thing from the party screen script. So in set party data, I also want to set the message text dot text to something like choose a Pokemon. Okay, so now let's go back to Unity, and we want to disable our party screen since we don't want to show that at the start of a battle. And I'll just save and see if it works. Oh, we have to disable our battle system also in the beginning. So now if we test, hopefully it should work. So let me try to start a battle. All right, and if I select the Pokemon action, you can see that it opens the party screen and the details of the Pokemons in my party is shown here. This looks okay. I think I just need to make my HP bar a little more big. So let me just enable the battle screen and the battle system and party screen and go inside the party member prefab, and I'll just make my HP bar a little more big. Okay, so that looks better. And finally, let me just add some space between the elements in the grid layout group. So I just add little space like 10, and that looks much better. So since this is just a prototype for the tutorial, I won't spend much time on polishing the UI, but if you're making an actual game, then make sure to spend more time and create a UI that looks really good. Okay, so we are done with the basic setup of the party screen. So I'll stop the video here, and in the next video, we'll let the player select a Pokemon from the party screen and we'll switch it with the current Pokemon of the player. So before you leave, make sure to leave a like on the video and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.